In business, there's no room for guesswork. Every shipment matters. Every deadline counts. When you're trying to keep operations running smoothly, the last thing you need is uncertainty. That's why reliability is at the core of USPS Ground Advantage. From the moment your package is first scanned in, it moves through a secure nationwide network, aiding in a timely and accurate delivery. You get near real-time tracking so you can keep up with your shipments. And with affordable upfront pricing, there are no hidden fees or surprise surcharges to throw off your cost sheets. It all adds up to predictable deliveries you can depend on. Because knowing your logistics are handled lets you focus on everything else: your customers, your team, and the future you're building. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to start shipping with confidence. USPS, official shipping sponsor of the NHL.
This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Second hour of the program. We've got a lot to get to over the course of the next 60 minutes. Best bets for the day. We'll have those coming up. And in 15 minutes from now, Jensen Lewis will be with us. I cannot get enough of the baseball talk. Love baseball and the fact that the season's here. Jensen's going to be with us to discuss a little bit more about what we're going to see, get some best bets and more from Jensen. And Adam Kimelman, Deputy Managing Editor at NHL.com, will be with us to discuss the series that we will see remaining tonight and look forward to the series that we saw yesterday and how they'll play out. But all of them pale in comparison to the guest who will be joining us now here on the Progressive Guest Line out at the Rampart. Duane Colucci at NYBookie Duane up on X if you want to give him a follow. I haven't been able to talk to him for a while. Duane, it is good to catch up with you, my friend. How have you been? You've got some new stuff going on out there at the Rampart as well, but you're still the man. And on top of all of it, the NFL draft is around the corner. What's going on?
Unbelievable, JVT. Thanks for having me on, and good to speak to you again. We got a ton going on. We're now a Caesars sports affiliation, transferred over from the South Point right after the Super Bowl. So we got the Caesars sports betting menu, the fabulous Caesars mobile app, which is just incredible with the betting options. Basically, we have the facility has been totally revamped. At the resort at Summerlin. We rebranded from the Rampart Casino to the resort at Summerlin, added tons of food amenities. We added to the video wall as well in the sports book, and it's just a great affiliation, and things are really coming together. And it's a beautiful property. You got to come out and see me.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar with Las Vegas, it is up on the, what am I talking about here, cardinal directions, west side of town for the most part. I drive by it all the time. I live out there. So I've been very much looking forward to trying to get in there once everything is done, and I will be out there to say what's up to Duane. But for right now, Duane, we do have the NFL draft coming up on Thursday. I do want to ask you about the more popular selection, of course. Everybody talks about the quarterbacks, and with the props that you guys have to offer, total quarterbacks in the first round is always going to be a popular selection. So what do you make of this noise around these quarterbacks, and specifically Ty Simpson, and more importantly, what have the bettors said here over at the Rampart and at Caesars when it comes to total quarterbacks going in the first round?
Yeah, we have so many different propositions, JVT, and definitely, Ty Simpson, there's been a ton of buzz around him. Nussmeier as well from LSU. You have Beck. Naturally, Mendoza is going to be the number one pick. But, we're starting to get, some action on Ty Simpson, actually, to possibly be even a first-round pick. But so many different propositions. And, right now, to be a first-round pick, Simpson is sitting at minus 225 at Caesars Sports and the resort at Summerlin. So we're definitely starting to see some action there. And actually, we got him at 15-1 to be a top 10 pick if you're looking to reach a little. I don't know if he could get to that cusp, JVT, but we also have that betting proposition where Simpson to be a top 10 pick plus 1,500 there. So I think there's some value there if you're thinking he could float in there. And a top 5 pick, he's 25-1 plus 2,500. So, if you're thinking some of these top teams are looking for a quarterback, Simpson has been the talk because we know Mendoza, like I said, is going to be the first pick by the Raiders.
Have you seen an attraction this year to betting in terms of handle? I know that we're around the corner from when you guys have to take it down 24 hours before the draft starts. And depending on how these operators want to hang them up, there is somewhat of an aversion by some to hang them up with too much time because information can be out there. But how have you guys handled it? And have you seen a hunger from bettors in terms of handle for these props as we get closer to the Nevada deadline to take them down?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, JVT, with certain sports books, they've regressed their betting menu when it comes to the NFL draft because you don't want to be exposed to too much from my side of the counter. But Caesars has an extensive risk room, and we're definitely here to take those bets. And, we've expanded actually our betting propositions. And, we have total offensive players drafted in the first round, linemen drafted in the first round, all the names naturally. You could bet Jeremiah Love's draft position, Sonny Styles, Tate, all these guys. We have several names that you could actually bet on an over-under of their draft position. So we're seeing an extensive betting menu here at Caesars and a lot of interest just because a lot of these, other books and other sites and facilities have regressed and tightened things up. And naturally, with the 24-hour cutoff that Nevada has, you do see a lot of interest in these next couple of days just before the cutoff deadline.
Duane Colucci with us, race and sportsbook manager over at the Rampart here in Summerlin. What is a prop that has stuck out? I know we brought up quarterbacks. Is that it, or is there a higher handled prop that you guys have seen take a lot of action?
Well, you hit the nail on the head with Simpson. He would definitely become a very focal point. And, we got guys like Jordan Tyson that are taking action, too, and only plus 250 to be a top 5 pick. Caleb Downs. You've seen a lot of people trying to handicap who's going to be in that top 5 and top 10. And definitely that's where we start to see most of the sharp action handle. Then you do have your average consumer that's just, like we said, they're trying to reach. And, we even have props like will the Chiefs select the wide receiver with their first draft pick, and that's only 3-1. So, we try and put as many betting options out there that we can to attract the handle at Caesar Sports and the resort at Summerlin, and it's really working out well. I mean, we have so many different propositions out there that it's tough to put your finger on one, JVT, but definitely the top 5 picks, that's where we're seeing most of the handle generated, and, most of the consumers and the sharps are trying to handicap that.
Duane, with this being obviously such an information-based event, how quickly do you guys at Caesars move whenever you get some of these plays that are notable? How do you handle any bets that are coming in, especially in these next couple of days where we really see the market, when the line moves within the days leading up to the draft, those seem to be the more accurate moves in the betting market. How do you guys handle those late moves, those late bets?
Yeah, definitely. You have to be careful, and you try to set the limits a little lower as opposed to an NFL-based Sunday game to where you're moving the line. You definitely have to be quick as this information gets out there and be quick on the trigger. And definitely that's why our risk room, is always surveying from all angles, whether it's ticket count or the large wagers that come in. So you have to move these lines very quick, John. Definitely. You have to be on top of it because this is, an information-based and data-based sports betting option, and you have to be on top of that and be very concise. Some of these guys, they drop out of the first round and second round, and, we have those options as well to where you could, fall within the second or third round, whereas you were perceived to be in the first round as information comes out, being disgruntled, not being, good in the interviews, what have you. So, yeah, a lot of information comes out, and especially in this 24 to 48 hours prior to the cutoff, and we have to move those lines quick.
Duane Colucci with us. All right, before we get you out of here, I do have to pick your brain because, of course, the NHL postseason is underway as well. And I would love to get your thoughts on what we've seen on the ice so far. But specifically for our Knights, they do take on the Mammoth in Game 2. Any action here that's notable between the Mammoth and the Knights as in their Game 2 matchup this evening?
Yeah, definitely, John. Now the Vegas Golden Knights are playing at such a high level since the move to Tortorella, and now they are a focal point again when in Las Vegas in the betting market, and we're seeing a lot of action on the Vegas Golden Knights. We started to book the futures again, on them, and definitely we're going to have a little liability being in Las Vegas, but it's good to see that they're garnering now a lot of handle at the betting window. They look pretty good in the first game, but Veggie's a tough goalie, and I think that Utah has an excellent chance. Currently, we're sitting at 165 on the Golden Knights, plus 140 on the Utah Mammoth. That at Caesar Sports here and the resort at Summerlin. So the money is starting to trickle in on the nights. We're giving you a good deal, though, at plus 158 on the puck line. So, it's all according to Carter Hart. Could he stay solid, and can this defense stay solid in front of him? And can Mark Stone lead the team? Jack Eichel needs that spark, get a little out of Marner, and definitely, the sky's the limit. We have a great, great roster, and there's buzz. Maybe even Carlson could come back if we make it to the second, third rounds. Who he sat out basically the whole year, and it just adds to the roster. You need some veteran leadership as well from Riley Smith and guys like that to complement Stone and his leadership. And, the Knights definitely have a chance. The West is wide open. You saw Colorado wasn't as dominant in that first game against the Kings. Kings definitely took it to them and were right in that game, and that was a 3-1 favorite, JVT. Mm-hmm. So, Dallas and Minnie are going to kill each other. Knights have a chance, definitely.
What do you make of this bounce back for Buffalo and Boston? First off, what's the price do you guys have here? And just how in the world do you come back emotionally when you're talking about the way you won that game? That seems insane to come back a day later and have to play again if you're the Sabres.
That was crazy. I tell you, Buffalo played really well. Tage Thompson is a beast. This guy, and they have size, JVT, Alex Tuck. They're pretty big, with Thompson and these guys who complement. But Boston had the lead. They just, they couldn't close it out. And that was a 4-goal third period for Buffalo, which was really strong. Minus 175 at Caesar Sports and the resort at Summerlin. Plus 148 on the buyback on the Bruins. I would give the Bruins another chance because they were taking it to them, and it took a while for Buffalo to say, hey, look, we're in the playoffs, but it's a new atmosphere for Buffalo. Keep that in mind. We know that. They're not a big playoff team, and they rarely make the playoffs, but they're so well coached by Ruff, and, definitely they have a monstrous chance. But it's so disappointing to see that actually I believe the Tampa-Montreal winner will play the Buffalo-Boston winner, and those three out of those 4 teams went at it the whole season for that division. So it's going to be interesting to see how Buffalo plays it out and if experience starts to wear them down. Pasternak was definitely a high-level player in that first game, and they, I thought there were some calls that went blindsided against him where, they were roughhousing him and not calling it. So Buffalo got the benefit of the calls down the stretch, and they were able to seal the deal.
Duane Colucci, Race and Sportsbook Manager of the Resort at Summerlin. Duane, it's good to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Always, John. Thanks for having me on. Love it.
Yep, you got it. At NYBookie Duane up on X if you want to give him a follow. Plenty of these series, we didn't even get a chance to talk to him about Philadelphia and Pittsburgh as Philly takes that series lead. $4 favorite now. The Flyers are in that set against Pittsburgh Penguins. Minus 440 at some spots as well. All right, let's take our break. When we come back, we head back to Major League Baseball. Jensen Lewis is going to join us, get his thoughts on some of the games, some best bets, and more on the other side. So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, welcome back in. JVT flying solo for the day. Stormy Bonatoni, she will be rinkside for the Avalanche Kings series tonight, then back in studio tomorrow. So we'll be a full copacetic family here on Money Moves coming up tomorrow on Hump Day. So helping us get through these tough times, let's head out to Progressive Guest Line. Welcome in one of the VSiN family members here, Jensen Lewis. Nice enough to give us a couple of minutes. Host of VSiN By The Books at JLou50 up on X where you want to give him a follow. And it is a broken record here on this show. But Jensen, I do have to ask anybody with any sort of affiliation with Cleveland is the guy himself. Messick is going to be on the hill tonight. What have you made of this kid and this start that he's been on? 7-1 to an AL Rookie of the Year. Do you think he can keep it up enough to get that done and win the award?
Great to be with you, buddy. And these are always the starts that I have a keen eye on just from knowing the attrition that it takes from you, not only physically, but mentally, and that an immediate start after you almost make history, of course, with it being this early in the season, JVT, you're about halfway through April. It's not what we saw from just a year ago when Gavin Williams took a little run for history into the ninth inning at Citi Field. He had 6 days off in between that start, upwards of 120 pitches. Parker Messick now going to have the normal turn on 4 days. So I do actually like the over in this game. A far cry, JVT, here in Northeast Ohio from what it was yesterday. Everyone inside Rocket Arena, much warmer there watching the Cavaliers beat up on the Raptors than 30 degrees at Progressive Field. Just came in from outside. We're probably going to be in the mid-60s here. The winds look like it's going to be favorable into the jet stream there at Progressive Field. So I'd expect offense from both sides, not only for Houston coming in against Messick, but I'm interested that first time around, JVT. Will he have that command? Will he have that same tempo and demeanor of where he was nearly untouchable just a start ago?
Yeah, a lot of totals for you today, I know. So let's hit a couple of these too. And by the way, we're a very pro Messick show, so we do want to point that out. We're a little jaded, or we're a little compromised in terms of rooting for his success. Yes, we want that to happen here. All right, let's talk a little bit about Braves and Nationals. Interesting pitching matchup here. Ronaldo Lopez versus Foster Griffin. A couple of starts ago, I thought Ronaldo Lopez showed some signs, especially in his metrics, that he was due for some regression, and maybe that is going to continue. Last start for him was a little bit more mortal, giving up 3 earned runs. Does that play into your play here on the total tonight?
It will play into that, and also it obviously is one of those easy things when you've got an Atlanta offense that is absolutely rolling on all cylinders. They have been a force to be reckoned with. Again, weather going to play a little part here, JVT, when you look at probably low 60s, but winds blowing out to left center there at Nats Park. Ideal environment for an uptick in runs scored. So for me, and just something I usually will tend to look at, whether to kind of buy down off the hook or just take it as is. To me, I think you just lay it at 8.5 and take that minus $1.15 on the over. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of resistance, albeit Foster Griffin has been better to start this season. I don't know if that Nats bullpen is anything that I feel is going to limit that third, potentially 4 time around the Braves order. So I do like not only the over in that, over 8.5 at minus $1.15, but I played the run line yesterday, minus 1.5 at plus $1.23. I believe, I haven't checked it this afternoon, it might have come down a few cents from that, but either way, back in the Braves to continue what has been just a torrid start here to 2026.
Yeah, to that point, a 5-game lead right now in the early going in the National League East. They're $1.40 favorites at some spots to win this division. Is there any shot that these teams, I mean, the Mets, the Phillies, off to brutal starts here so far. We know what's going on with the Mets since Mamdani hugged the Mets family. What do we do here with this division? Do we, like, is $1.40? Is that maybe even too short for the Braves? I know we're early on, but this team seems to be on fire, and the rest of these teams don't seem to have the firepower to keep up.
Yeah, I'll agree. JVT, I did not expect it to be this kind of a blitzkrieg out of the gates for them, considering all of the starting pitching attrition that they suffered, and namely not having Schwellenbach and the Strider oblique injury. I thought they were doomed from the start, but this offense has basically overcome that, and they've really gotten great contributions. Bryce Elder has been phenomenal for them to start. Of course, Chris Sale just reprising his Cy Young form here of just a couple of years ago, and I'm anxious to see once they start to get healthy. So no, I don't think it's too much of a price to pay at this moment. I would say if there's any value, I would look at where the Phillies have started really, really slow along with the Mets. You know, we respect the marathon in the regular season, and I know April is not going to look good for either Philadelphia or the Mets, but there's too much pedigree for those groups. And if you're looking for make the playoffs prices, I think come May 1st, just kind of seeing how both teams finish these next 9 to 10 days, I think goes a long way in whether you want to invest in them to have a little bit more of a resurgence once that calendar turns to the second month of the season.
Jensen Lewis with us again, host of VSiN By The Books here on the Vegas Stats and Information Network, running through some of the best bets he's got on the card. You can find all these picks up at VSiN.com. Let's go to White Sox and Diamondbacks. Merrill Kelly looked okay in his first start of the season. Command was a little wonky, but does he have enough to get it done here? D-backs are $1.45 favorite or so against the White Sox, or is there another way to play this?
I actually like where the ballpark metrics. The rumor is the roof will be open there at game time, and that's going to be a low 90s, I believe, first pitch there. So advantageous for some offense there. Really like the way that Corbin Carroll has been swinging the bat. Geraldo Perdomo starting to come around a little bit. Had a day off on Sunday. They had the chance to get him off his feet. So the top of this order, and actually Ketel Marte, you kind of hoping that he starts to turn the corner as well. Those three, I think, will be able to get to Sean Burke, who's going to take the mound for Chicago here. If you look also at where the White Sox bullpen has, in spurts, been one of the worst in big league baseball. You're looking at second to last in bullpen ERA. They are, third worst in bullpen ERA, second worst WHIP, and they have had no problems giving up home runs and extra traffic. So I think this gets to that White Sox bullpen early. I think the D-backs take advantage. So for me, this was a nice spot to go back at a good, healthy, and plus money price. Diamondbacks on the run line, -1.5 at plus $1.30.
All right, one of my fantasy. This is why I like fantasy baseball. It keeps you in tune with the season. It's an everyday thing. You got to keep a track. You got to stream some guys. You got to see what's going to go down. I took a shot with Kiter Montero today to stream him against Milwaukee. Now I don't know if that drives what you're looking at here in this game. Another total for you between the Brewers and the Tigers.
Yeah. Okay. So Kiter Montero has actually been really solid to start the year. And again, when you look at it, an overall top five rotation ERA, you could make the argument that outside of Skubal, what Casey Mize has done here the last week or so, and even Jack Flaherty to a certain extent, Kiter Montero has been one of their most consistent starters. What's always fascinating to me is when you look at the Brewers, and knowing that their offense is still down a couple of big-time weapons, of course, no Christian Yelich, and you're still waiting for Jackson Chourio to come back, they still have found themselves as a top 10 scoring offense, which is remarkable, knowing that you're not with two of the guys that are primary weapons there. What I like here at JVT is I like that there's not going to be a ton of swing and miss, not elite swing and miss, albeit I did take a shot on Kyle Harrison, 5 or more strikeouts. He has been, one of those starters too, for Milwaukee that has gotten beat up a little bit. So he may generate his strikeouts, but he may give up his fair share of traffic. So I think you may be right on the side here, JVT, backing Detroit, but I think we get some offense there at Comerica Park tonight.
All right, so let's zoom out a little bit as we have seen this, because I wanted to ask a general question. I actually didn't get to ask Adam this, but you're the pitcher, so this actually makes some sense that we would ask you. We've seen a lot of moving pieces at the back end of a ton of these bullpens. We obviously got the news of the Dodgers, what's happening there. Teams like the Cubs are really struggling. We know what's going on with the Astros situation. So has that been something that you have noticed? Have you factored that into the handicapping, or do you just go first fives? Do you look at some volatility? Because it seems like there's a lot here with a lot of these bullpens, Jensen, but I just don't know how to put my finger on what the actual effect would be.
The easy answer, JVT, look at a couple of the elite ones. And of course, two of the big injuries right now. We just learned today that Raisel Iglesias goes on the IL. And now all of a sudden it's a godsend that Robert Suarez was signed for them this offseason. So I don't think they really skip a beat. Atlanta has been one of the elite bullpens to start the year. San Diego has been obviously amazing. Mason Miller, no one's going to touch him, at least the way he's going. So first fives really for me are just based solely with where I feel the elements are, not only weather-wise, but where that starting pitcher has come in, maybe the last two, if not the last three starts. So it won't be a market, JVT, that I traditionally get in until we get into May. That gives you about 5-6 turns around. That also allows us a little fluctuation on maybe a bad start, from a bullpen, and maybe they get their act together. I'll tell you what I really like, though. If you're looking for just live spots where bullpens have been really good, Baltimore and Miami have had a lot of success. And if they're in close games, especially at home, might be shots to take on them live. Those are two bullpens that I think have overperformed. And it's unique that Philly has lost 6 in a row, yet their bullpen has been overall one of the best units in big league baseball. So ways to attack there, but also keeping a watchful eye, as you mentioned, some of these closer injuries really wreaking some havoc in some of the big bullpens.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Jensen, good to talk to you, man. We always appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir.
You bet.
Again, Jensen Lewis, VSiN By The Books every single morning. I don't want to assume anything, but I do have a weekly hit on Wednesday morning, so I assume that I will talk to Jensen tomorrow morning. But you know what they say about assuming. And we learned, Justin, didn't we? Quite a bit about assuming yesterday here on this program, so we don't want to do that. Free picks backed by real analysis. That's Just Win Bets, baby. Mathematical models and AI-driven best bets across NFL, college, hoops, NBA, NHL, UFC, soccer, and more, plus a live weekend preview every Friday. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on X, get their free daily best bets newsletter at justwinbetsbaby.com. We head back to the ice. When we return, get a little thoughts on these series with Adam Kimelman of NHL.com.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
NHL postseason has been exciting. All the games have been pretty solid. Yesterday, an absolute marathon between the Hurricanes and the Senators goes our way. Carolina gets a 3-2 win in double overtime. And a good series for the show, as Stormy Buonantony, our usual host here today on this program, had the Flyers to win the series, and they lead 2-0. So to discuss that and much more, we bring in our next guest here on the Progressive Guest Line, Adam Kimelman, Deputy Managing Editor at NHL.com. And Adam, I bring up that series because you did write about it up on the website and wanted to discuss this lead for the Flyers. How have they done it to this point, and do the Penguins have a shot to dig themselves out of a 2-0 hole?
Well, to answer your second question first, I absolutely do, and it would not surprise me in the least if this series went back to Pittsburgh tied 2-2. These are two very evenly matched teams, and I don't think in either game you can say the Penguins played a bad game. I think the Flyers just raised their game to a different level, and, you know, I think the penalty kill has really helped Philadelphia. They're 7 for 7. They've allowed 2 shots on goal, which really nobody saw coming, not to mention the shorthanded goal they scored last night. Not to mention the penalty they drew on Pittsburgh's power play. That's really helped change the tide in the series where, you know, you expect the Penguins with all the speed and all the skill to really, you know, use that to their advantage. And the Flyers have really done a nice job taking that away from them. 5-on-5, the play has been very evenly. I think the Flyers have just gotten a few more breaks and a few more pucks to bounce their way.
Yeah, I'm somebody that really likes to look at some of these metrics, and over at Natural Stat Trick, when you look at the game yesterday, at even strength, the Penguins had like 9 high danger chances compared to 2 for Philadelphia. They won the shot share as well. To me, that tells me that the Penguins might have deserved a little bit of a better fate, and that they can continue to play that way. Do you put as much stock into some of these metrics individually, game to game, or is there maybe some noise in some of those things?
I think there's definitely something to read into how the Penguins played, certainly in the final 2 periods, especially the third period. They really took advantage of the Flyers. They were able to really push the attack and keep a lot of the play in front of the Flyers' net. Now, what Philadelphia was able to do, though, is keep a lot of those shots to the outside. One thing they've sort of allowed in their defensive structures, they'll allow the shots from the outside and play into the fact that their goalie can make the save. What they want to avoid are those high danger shots, are those high danger opportunities, those opportunities from inside the home plate area. Some people will call them, you know, between the dots from the circles down. That's something they've really been good at avoiding in this series, a little bit less so in game 2. And that's something that they know they need to be more aware of here moving forward, that they can't let the Penguins continue to get inside on them. They can't let the Penguins, you know, be able to generate those opportunities from in close. If they're going to shoot from the outside, you let them have those shots all day. It's those high danger opportunities that you mentioned. That's where they want to avoid.
Adam Kimelman with us, NHL.com, Deputy Managing Editor. You can check out the written work up there. And, of course, follow him up on X if you'd like, NHL Adam K. One of the series that has been pretty entertaining despite a 2-0 series lead as well has been Carolina and Ottawa. The Hurricanes get it done in double overtime yesterday, 3-2. I'll be hyperbolic, I'll overreact, and I'll say even though they're up 2-0, Carolina with a history of underperforming in this postseason despite being a highly rated team, should we be worried after 2 really tight games with the lowly Senators as they hit the road to take on Ottawa as the series resumes on Thursday?
Well, I have a hard time calling them the lowly Ottawa Senators, but I understand your point. You know, no one really gave them much of a chance going into the series because of the pedigree Carolina has shown. And, you know, the fact that this core group has gotten to the conference finals, I believe 3 times in the last, 6 or 7 years, but they've never gotten over that hump. I don't think that means that there's something lacking there other than in some cases, I would say bad luck. The fact that to get there is really difficult. That all being said, I do think Carolina is going to win this series. I did pick them to win this series, but I don't think Ottawa is going to go away easy. Linus Ullmark's a Vezina winning goaltender for a reason. He's a really good player, and they have some really legitimate firepower up there. When you look at Tkachuk, when you look at Stützle, when you look at Giroux, when you look at Batherson, they're healthy on the back end with Shabbat and Sanderson. Losing Artem Zub kind of hurts them a little bit as far as, what they like to do defensively. But I think, they are going to be close games. It wouldn't surprise me, if Carolina swept the series by winning 4 one-goal games.
What about
I think that could be how this series goes.
I was curious if we move this forward, assuming that the 2-0 series leads hold respectively for both Philadelphia and for Carolina, depending on how they end, but still both win their series respectively. The Flyers will be hot, man, if they win this series and move on to take on the Hurricanes. How much danger would Carolina be in taking on a team like Philly in a second-round matchup?
Well, I think it would be an equally close series, but I think you can take a little bit out of what happened late in the season when those teams played.
Yeah.
And, Carolina basically had a lot of American League players in there, and it still took Philadelphia a shootout to beat them when Philadelphia had a chance to clinch a playoff spot. So I think Carolina, with its full complement of players, if they're healthy, I think Carolina would win that series. But I think, there is something to be said for momentum. There is something to be said for, coming into a series hot. But, if Carolina sweeps or wins in 5 and the Flyers have to go even, the Carolina would be just as hot coming in. So I think series to series, a lot of that momentum sort of gets washed away, and it's a clean slate for everybody come game 1 of the second round. But I think, to play it forward, as you said, I would put, my guess would be Carolina would win that series, but I think it would be an incredibly hard-fought series because I think Philadelphia is playing a better game than they, especially since the Olympic break, than they did in the first 55 games of the season.
All right, let's spin it forward to tonight. 4 games on the ice this evening. In the first round, game 2 between Tampa Bay and Montreal. Lightning, a very heavy favorite against the Canadiens. Montreal pulled off a win in overtime on the road in game 1. Should Tampa Bay be concerned about game 1, or should they be able to handle their business and even the series up tonight?
I think Tampa will I think, I'll put it this way. The beginning of the season, if you go back to September, I said the Tampa Bay Lightning would reach a Stanley Cup final. Nothing I've seen since then has pushed me to feel otherwise. I think the advantage Montreal has, younger legs, faster legs, a little bit of inexperience, I think, goes a long way because they don't know how they're supposed to react in certain situations. So those guys just go. They just put their heads down and they go. And that top line of Slavkovsky and Caulfield and Suzuki, it's probably the elite line in the playoffs right now. Those guys, everything they do seems to turn into gold. Slavkovsky had the hat trick in game 1. Caulfield is a 50-goal scorer during the regular season. Suzuki had 100 points during the regular season. That line is as good as it gets. Obviously, Montreal is going to need more from more places. You cannot win a Stanley Cup as a one-line team, I don't think. But they are certainly capable of taking a 2-0 lead, back home to Bell Center. It wouldn't surprise me. I think I would say Tampa's going to win and even the series, but Montreal would not surprise me at all.
Follow him up on X at NHL Adam K, NHL.com, where you can find the work there. As I am a big NBA guy, Adam, and I was on Sunday watching a bunch of blowouts, but on the other screen, there was drama as the Buffalo Sabres came storming back against the Boston Bruins to get a 1-0 series lead in that one 4-3. What in the world are we expecting for an encore tonight between these two?
I think the Sabres have become everybody's second favorite team right now because 14 years away from the playoffs, to see the atmosphere, to see how happy those people are to have playoff hockey finally. I covered the last Sabres playoff game back in 2011 in Philadelphia. To think it's been 14 years for those poor people since then. They're so excited. They're so passionate. I was talking to another reporter while we were watching game 1 of Buffalo-Boston, and we just said, God, how great an atmosphere that you wish you could be in right now. To see how those people just – the way they were so hungry and so starved for that atmosphere, the way they just love that team. And that Sabres team is good. There is a ton of skill. They play with a ton of speed. I know somebody sort of maybe derisively wanted to call it river hockey. You call it whatever you want. They won that division, and they're a damn good team with a lot of talent. And they've got the ability to go not just through this series, but to go very deep in the playoffs.
All right, our last 45 seconds with you. Expectations tonight. We are out in Vegas for the Mammoth taking on VGK in Game 2 of this series.
You know, this series reminds me a little bit of the Philadelphia-Pittsburgh series, where you've got a young team, playoff neophytes, like in Utah, like the Flyers are, versus a team of grizzled championship resume veterans like Vegas is. I think John Tortorella sort of adds the secret sauce there. I don't think he's rewritten the wheel, but I think, you know, the results speak for themselves. I think he brings a tone and a temperament to that room that clearly was needed. Whatever he's saying, whatever he's doing, whatever minor adjustments he's made in the 8-9 games he's been there, it's worked because they look like a little bit of a different team. And I think what works for them is there's a veteran group that can filter the message through the noise in which it's delivered, and they're taking that message the right way.
Adam, thanks for carving out some time, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Enjoy the playoffs.
Yep, we are, and we have been. Sharps Invitational, season-long NFL bankroll tournament. Think poker meets football. 3 tiers, 3 champions, 3 prize pools worth playing for. Sign up today at jointhesharps.com.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Big thank you to all of our guests who have joined us throughout the day. If you missed out on any part of our action, you can check it out at VSiN.com. But first, before we get to the rest of that, we got to tell you about Cut, a social betting platform that lets you bet directly against your friends and other users on basically anything: sports, politics, pop culture, and even personal bets. Every bet fully customizable and pre-funded means no more chasing someone down when they lose. No flaking, no excuses, just results. Like, for example, Matt Brown owes Adam Hill of the Las Vegas Review-Journal $40 because we had a Dave & Buster's Olympics that he did not pay up. If we had Cut, we could have used it to collect the money. So check it out. You can get a 20% deposit bonus on your first deposit when you use promo code VSiN, cut.com, KUTT.com. Download to the App Store, use promo code VSiN. Yes, the tiny-headed Matt Brown did not pay up that night that we went out to Dave & Buster's. And Adam Hill, who has a large head, is owed $40 from one Matt Brown. So that is a wrong that needs to be righted at some point in our lives here at the Vegas Stats and Information Network. But again, a big thanks. Adam Kimelman was just with us. Adam Kimelman, we should give him the respect to pronounce his name properly, over at NHL.com. Jensen Lewis, Duane Colucci, Adam Burke, who was in for 30 minutes, and Storm Bonatoni as well. You can check out everything we have to offer up at VSiN.com, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out Money Moves, like, rate, review, and subscribe. We will get to some table setting for the NBA playoffs tonight as well. We're starting to get some market moves. Let's recap, though, really quickly how the evening went for our best bets. Then we'll spin this forward because, of course, it does have to do with the NBA tonight. Clean sweep, thankfully, for the 3 bets we had yesterday. Raptors-Cavs goes under 223.5, falls right on 220. Got a little sweaty at the end there. I was hoping the Raptors would just kind of quit, and they kept fouling, And anyway, fell at 220. You stay under the total there. Hurricanes money line, also a sweat, minus 150. Had to go to double overtime, get goals called off. It was absolute nonsense, but eventually, as Stormy likes to call them, the soft Euros get a victory in double overtime. And I texted Stormy immediately the way that game ended and told her that the soft guys got it done. She did text me back, even though she was very busy. And then Marlins money line, McGreevy gets knocked around a bit, gets charged with 4 earned runs, and the Marlins get a victory as a $1.26 favorite. Hopefully we can keep that going here today. Before we get to the bets for this evening, do want to update where the market's at with a couple of these games. First off, Houston and Los Angeles. Let's update this because this right now is something we're pretty much waiting for information on. You could take a risk at this point if you'd like to. You could also play the zigzag if you'd like to. 2-1 or 2-1, I should put it in normal English, is your record. If you decided to play the zigzag yesterday, the lone loser, a loss by a hook, depending on the number you were looking at, the Toronto Raptors against the Cleveland Cavaliers. But for tonight, the Houston Rockets, 5.5 point favorites, total of 208.5 on the road against LA. Still waiting for the news of whether or not Kevin Durant will play tonight. We had the blurry Zapruder film earlier earlier in the program. We could throw it up of Kevin Durant at shoot-around yesterday, just trying the knee out, had it wrapped up, looked like he was grimacing a bit, putting some shots up. You just don't know what his health is going to be, even if he does play. Market clearly believes that he is going to play. For those who don't remember, on Saturday, when these two teams played, if you're watching up at VSiN.com, here's the footage from Monday's practice for the Houston Rockets. Again, not today. This is Monday, but still, the closing line, or excuse me, the opening line, and the number that it was right before we got the news that KD was scratched was 5 with a total of about 208. So the market sitting right now currently believes that Kevin Durant is going to play today. Question just becomes, will he be fully healthy? Will he be fully effective? I haven't really bought in on Houston a ton. We've brought this up a ton of times here on this very program. So for one of the best bets today, we will reach out and try one time to fade the zigzag. Lakers plus 5.5. I'll take the risk. I think this market is fully counting for Kevin Durant. So it's not a risk-free play because you can obviously lose it, but I think it's risk-free in the sense of you're getting the best of the number now with the Lakers. If KD plays, there shouldn't be any adjustment. This is a number that expects him to be out there. And if he doesn't play, well, we'll take 5.5 with the game that is going to close shorter, probably in the range of like 2 again, 2.5 with Houston. So we'll go with the Lakers tonight, catching that 5.5 at home against the Houston Rockets. The other one, I'm not sure if I'm ready to get hurt again, considering the way the favorites were operating, at least in the early portion, although yesterday the dogs were barking. But Portland, San Antonio, got to bring this one up as well. We're looking at 11.5s across the board. Here at Circa, we're at juiced 11. Totals 220.5. The one thing not going for San Antonio here, can you shoot again 42% from beyond the arc? This is going to be a strategy that teams employ against San Antonio. On Sunday, they answered the call. They shot the ball extremely well. But Portland and other opponents, as they move on into the postseason and win this series, which is largely expected, you're going to get teams that defensively will play off your shooters and dare you to beat them. One of the funnest, I thought, defensive wrinkles that you saw Portland throw out there is that they decided to put Donovan Clingan defensively on Stephon Castle. Again, not feeling like they are going to get burned by Castle from beyond the arc and putting their center on their guard and saying, you cannot beat us from there. The San Antonio Spurs made him pay for that. Can they do it again in a second consecutive game? I would say no. I don't think they can. So, at the risk of being hurt once more, we'll also add Portland plus 11.5 today against the San Antonio Spurs. This will also be part of the challenge that we have here, too, as the NBA handicapping contest we have among some of the handicappers here. Gil's done a great job of updating, but I'll take a shot with Portland staying inside of this number against the San Antonio Spurs, banking on the fact that San Antonio is not going to be able to shoot like that. And I also do think that you could play this game under the total. We saw this open at about 219.5 at some spots, 220. We're at 220.5, and that number's kind of floating around in that range right now. I do think that you're probably going to get some regression in water finding its level with the San Antonio Spurs shooting. We saw this first game open 223, or excuse me, open 222.5. Some spots closed 223.5. You ended up going underneath that number, and I think you're probably going to be able to go under again. And that's, of course, on Sunday, a game that had good shooting. Don't think that's going to be the case. And by the way, I don't think Portland's really going to find their offense for the most part either. I think this is going to be a gritty, ugly type of game. And so if you get that, if it's Portland's type of game, then I do think that there's a shot they can stay inside of this number, but that also means that this game would have to go under the total. If it goes over, I don't think I'm going to have a good shot unless Portland has an ungodly shooting performance of their own, which certainly is possible. But either way, I thought that Portland would be a solid ATS side throughout this series against San Antonio. And similar to what we talked about with Adam Burke in terms of stubbornness and playing on angles and waiting to either get your teeth kicked in or evidence that the fact is you're right or wrong, we'll play with some stubbornness here today and go Portland one more time against the San Antonio Spurs. Now, we don't have to throw up the adjusted series stuff only because Portland has no shot in this series to win it, I would say. I don't think they're going to be able to get it done, but we will see. San Antonio, if you think that they're going to sweep them, plus 130, and then San Antonio to win in 5, plus 210, which was a popular selection. Now, you will note that if you've been watching this program today, you will say, John, there is another series that is being played today. Why have we not mentioned it? Well, we have an obligation to do so, but there's really not much there. Boston Celtics taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. Number right now, Boston floating in the range of about a 14.5 point favorite. Total is 217.5. I don't think there's much of a prayer here for the Philadelphia 76ers. We saw this team really struggle to get their offense going against Boston and really struggle defensively against the Celtics. It seemed Boston got whatever they wanted in that game. You could make the argument that maybe this shouldn't be adjusted, right? That if you wanted to play, and this is what I always like, context. People like to just blindly talk about the zigzag without discussing why things happen the way they happen. part of the reason why the zigzag works is you get situations like this, where the Philadelphia 76ers lose, get smoked 123-91 in the first game. And so the market, which closed 13 in that game on Saturday, or is it Sunday? Sunday, then decides here for the second game, we're up to 14.5 now. So that's also part of the zigzag is it's not just blindly playing the team that lost the first game. There's also some market adjustments that might get you inside of this number, but didn't really see anything. You can look at Portland and say, hey, San Antonio's not going to shoot like that again. You can look at Los Angeles and say, hey, Kevin Durant might not play today, take an inflated number against a team that's not good in the half court. I don't really see any indicators that Philadelphia got the short end of the stick, if you will, or some sort of adjustment is worth it. They may very well stay inside of 14.5 today, but it's not one where I felt that there was anything there. You probably shouldn't get up to 14.5 here. Probably should be more like 13.5 by my own measure. But I don't want to sit there and ask the Philadelphia 76ers to stay inside of that number. So I will pass on that. But do believe that if you're going to come in here and gun to the head, say pick a side, Von Tobel, it would be Philadelphia, but it's not one that I would be very happy about doing at this point right now. Worth mentioning, and we'll have some of these tomorrow, but we do get Orlando and Detroit for game 2. That is going to be fun. We're at 8.5 or 9, depending on where you look, with a total of 219. And then Oklahoma City and Phoenix. How about this? An NBA postseason game in which the Oklahoma City Thunder are 17-point favorites for game 2 of their series tomorrow against the Phoenix Suns. Total 214.5. A absolutely lopsided series, as you can tell by looking at it. You'll also note no baseball for me today. I will point out selfishly that two sides that stuck out to me. Do agree with Adam Burke. McGinsky getting that start here for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Do like that, but the numbers really passed me by. Got in on that late, so you don't want to take minus 105 on a side that you could have gotten a plus sign next to it. And the Angels today against the Toronto Blue Jays. How about this? It didn't come to fruition yesterday, but apparently the Blue Jays had to bus in from Arizona to take on the Angels, which seems like a brutal spot, but they got it done. But the Angels are going to send Kahanowitz out there. It's minus 115, total's 9.5. I do think that there's some signs for Kahanowitz to potentially get beat up. He's off to a pretty solid start, and he has done a good job. And we've talked a lot about this pitching staff being better, but 3.47 ERA for Kahanowitz over 23 and a third, but expected ERA 5.07. Command is up. Strikeouts are fine, but getting a little lucky on balls in play. I actually think he might be a little bit of a fade tonight, and the Blue Jays could extend this losing streak for the Angels. We're all done. Appreciate it, as always. Check out the podcasts and Money Moves. Also, Pod to the Futures that I do with Mitch Moss, which will be out later today. Harvard Handicappers. And speaking of Mitchell and Paulie, it will be up next here. Follow the Money coming up, followed by VSiN Prime Time. So don't go anywhere. It's VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We'll see you tomorrow with a full crew. Stormy, we'll be back.